Hey, it's Mike from ZERMELOmusic.com, and in this video, I'm going to show you how I process the Liftoff synth for my track Are You Mad? And that sounds like this.
Are you mad?
So two things before we start. Number one, if you've been following these videos, you'll know that this track is kind of in the Fisher style, but this sound deviates a little bit from the Fisher formula. Typically, Fisher has the Liftoff synth, that's what I call it, starting the drop section. So after the long kind of slow build in the break and build sections, he really over delivers in the drops by giving you this huge Liftoff synth. But I'm deviating from that a little bit. In Are You Mad? I'm primarily having the Liftoffs start the break sections. And number two, in the last video, I show you the patch and processing from the lead synth in Are You Mad, this track. And we saw that it was simply a case of finding a cool preset and then tweaking it a little bit to make it work in the track. And that's exactly what's going on here as well. As you can see, this is a sound that is straight out of Massive's factory library. It's called Complete F***. And let's listen to what it sounds like all by itself with no processing. And processing on. A little bit more aggressive, a little bit more in your face. And so you can see there's not that much processing, at least by my standards. So let's go ahead and break it down, starting with the Sound Toys plate. All right, and in the plate, you could see that we have a 7-second decay time about. The mix is set to about 17%, and the low cut, which happens pre-reverb, as the sound goes into the reverb unit, that's set to 127 hertz, and I have the modulation section turned on. And so before and after the reverb, let's actually check it out in the mix. It's going to be easier to hear the differences actually if we listen in the context of the mix. So before, then after. And after. So pretty subtle change. Again, the reverb is only set to about 17%, but it does make it a little bit warmer. It does make it a little bit bigger. And then we're gonna turn the Oxford inflator on, and this is just making it larger than life, bringing out that reverb, pushing the sound forward. Now the reverb does make it a little bit warmer. And so what the Oxford inflator is doing is I'm pushing the curve up a little bit, and that makes it a little bit brighter. And I have this whole effect set to about 50%. So let's listen before and after the inflator. So the sound is pretty intense. It's kind of hard to hear these little changes in the mix. So let's actually switch back to solo and see if we can hear the difference that these two plugins are making. So here we go. So to me, it's just warmer and more present. And that's what these plugins were supposed to do, is just make that sound a little bit larger than life. And then the rest of the plugins here are helping me just fit it back into the mix a little bit. So let's go ahead and turn solo off and check out the rest of these plugins. So next up is the little micro shift, and this is just helping me make it wider. I just have it on the second style here, and the mix is set to about 34%. So before and after this additional width, let's check it out.
Are you mad?
Cool, I think that's pretty noticeable, definitely a little bit wider there. Next we have Pro Q, and this is rolling off some of the lows. We are going into a break, so we don't want to have too much low end going on there. And then we are pushing the mid-range on the sides just a little bit to strengthen that area, and then we are just kind of increasing the top end on the sound in general. Now this could be a little bit subtle, but let's go ahead and see if we could try hearing it. So before and after.
Are you mad?
And next we have Ableton's Overdrive. This is really bringing out the heart of the sound, around 1K. Now I've mentioned this before, but I love using overdrive kind of as a replacement to a boosting EQ. And so I really try to narrow in on where's the frequency band that's really being expressed in the mix, and let's saturate that a little bit. So that's exactly what's going on here. Just figuring out where I want to boost and then how much the bandwidth that I want to boost, basically. And then just messing around with the dynamics. This is going to crush the sound, really over compress it when you go down to 0. So it's preserving 0 dynamics. You could think of it like that. And then just mixing a little bit in. And so let's go ahead and audition this. This is probably going to be the biggest change that we could hear, but here we go, before and after.
Are you mad? Are you mad? Are you mad? Are you mad?
Really strengthening that 1K, pushing it aggressively forward in the mix. And then here we have the glue compressor, and this is just being used as a soft clipper. You can see that the range has been turned all the way down to 0, which effectively disables the compression. And so this is just catching any overages. Anytime that this sound outputs anything higher than 0, it's just going to get clipped off, and it's going to introduce a little bit of distortion because of that. So once again, before and after the processing.
Are you mad? Are you mad?
And so this again is one of those things where just one little thing at a time just keeps on pushing something a little bit forward. The cumulative effect is very noticeable, but each individual step might be a little bit subtle. Now, if you're into this sound and all the sounds in the track, I created a free sample pack that you can download for free. The link is in the description. In the next video, we're going to look at writing and programming a bass sound from scratch. So if you're sick of presets, you're going to want to check that video out. So in the meantime, download your free samples, go program and process some epic synths, and I will see you in that bass video. Sounds pretty dope, bro.